Today, we are diving deep into one of the most incredible biological journeys imaginable, the 9 months of pregnancy. We're going to look at the actual blueprint for how a human being gets built, from the very first chemical signal all the way to the final moments before birth. Okay, let's get into it.
Just think about that question for a second. How does a body build an entirely new person from scratch? It sounds like science fiction, right? But it's not magic. It's this amazing cascade of perfectly timed, super complex biological events. And by the end of this, we're going to have a much better idea of how it all works.
So here's our game plan for this journey. We'll start with that very first signal that kicks the whole thing off. Then we'll see how the mother's body gets completely remodeled. After that, we'll check out the fetus's unique lifeline, its own private world inside the womb, and finally, the dramatic countdown to birth.
Every great story has a beginning, and this one starts not with a loud bang, but with a tiny chemical whisper, a message that tells the body, okay, something huge has just happened. This is step one in a very long chain of command.
So, meet the messenger, human chorionic gonadotrophin, or HCG for short. You've probably heard of this one. It's the hormone that home pregnancy tests are looking for. It's made by a layer of cells that will eventually become the placenta, and its first job is basically to shout, "We are pregnant," and get all the other systems online for what's about to happen. So what's its number one mission? Well, as you can see here, it's all about keeping this little temporary structure in the ovary, the corpus luteum, alive and kicking. HCG basically tells it, hey, don't shut down yet. We need you to keep making progesterone. And that progesterone is absolutely essential to support the early pregnancy. Without HCG, the whole incredible process would just stop right there.
Okay, so the "we're pregnant" message is out. Now, the body has to start this massive, and I mean massive, renovation project. It's not just a body for one anymore. It has to re-engineer itself to support a whole second life that's growing incredibly fast.
And this is the first huge engineering puzzle. You need to get way more blood flowing to the placenta to supply the fetus. But you can't just crank up the blood pressure. That would be really dangerous. So how do you do it? How does the body increase blood flow without just blowing a gasket?
The answer is another brilliant little hormone, and it's got the perfect name: relaxin. Its job is pretty much what it sounds like. It tells the body's entire circulatory system to, well, relax. It's like a master plumber coming in to redesign all the pipes to handle the extra demand.
And the way it works is just so clever. When relaxin hits the bloodstream, it triggers more nitric oxide production, and this chemical tells the blood vessels to dilate, to get wider. So think of it like turning a tiny country lane into a 6-lane superhighway. This makes the overall resistance in the system drop way down. So now you can get way more blood flowing with the exact same amount of effort. Just an incredibly elegant solution.
All right, so the mother's body has created this incredible supply line. But what about the one on the receiving end? A fetus is living in an aquatic world, right? There's no air to breathe. That means its entire circulatory system has to be set up completely differently than ours.
And this brings us to something that trips a lot of people up. We're taught that arteries carry oxygen-rich blood away from the heart. But in the fetal system, that whole idea gets flipped on its head. So which vessel is actually the one bringing in all the good stuff, the oxygen? And this slide lays it out perfectly. It's the umbilical vein. That single large vessel is the lifeline. It's carrying all that bright red, oxygen-rich blood from the placenta to the fetus. The two smaller umbilical arteries, on the other hand, are the return lines. They carry the oxygen-poor blood and waste products away from the fetus. So the big takeaway here is that for a fetus, the vein is the all-important supply line.
This quote really just hammers it home. In the entire fetal circulatory system, there is no blood that's more oxygen-rich than what's flowing through that one single umbilical vein. It is the absolute peak of the oxygen supply.
So, the fetus is getting its oxygen and nutrients. That's sorted. But what about its actual home? It's not just floating in nothing. It's living in this carefully managed, protective, aquatic world. And that world is the amniotic fluid. You can think of it like a personal temperature-controlled swimming pool that cushions the fetus from bumps and lets it move around to build its muscles. But here's the thing. This fluid isn't just sitting there. It's a dynamic system that's constantly being produced and reabsorbed.
So that raises a pretty important question. If you're constantly adding fluid to this pool, how do you keep the levels just right? What's the main way all that fluid gets recycled and reabsorbed so it doesn't get out of control?
And the answer is actually pretty wild. The fetus swallows it. Yep, in the later stages of pregnancy, fetal swallowing is the #1 way amniotic fluid gets reabsorbed back into the system. And what's just as interesting is what doesn't do the job. The lungs are actually making fluid, not taking it in. And the skin becomes waterproof pretty early on, so it can't absorb anything. It really all comes down to the fetus drinking its own bathwater, so to speak.
Okay, we've built a person. We've remodeled a body to support them, and we've managed their environment. We have now reached the end of this incredible 9-month journey. And the final stage is a powerful, coordinated mechanical process: birth.
Now, labor isn't just one big event. It's broken down into 3 main stages. You have that long first stage, which is all about getting the cervix to open up. Then, the second stage, the main event, the delivery of the baby. And finally, the third stage is delivering the placenta, that amazing organ that made this whole thing possible in the first place.
That whole first stage, all those hours of intense work, it can really be boiled down to this one number: 10 centimeters. That's the magic number. That's the goal for full cervical dilation, the point where the path is clear for the baby to pass through.
But getting to 10 isn't a steady race. Just look at the difference here. That first stage is split into 2 phases. The latent phase is slow going, less than 1 centimeter an hour. But then, things hit the accelerator. In the active phase, that rate of change just shoots up, usually well over 1 centimeter an hour. This is where the real rapid progress happens.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, from that very first hormonal shout of HCG to the re-engineering of the blood vessels with relaxin, all the way to the final mechanical push of labor, it's just this one continuous, perfectly timed biological cascade. It's amazing.
And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If this is just one process that we've unpacked, what other incredible secrets are still locked away inside the human body, just waiting for us to figure them out? Thanks so much for joining me.